Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm a 22-year-old competitive boulder from Canada, currently living near Frankfurt, Germany. Welcome back to the COMPCLIMB training series, where I record most of my training, provide in-depth analysis of every session, and just chat about climbing with an emphasis on competition. Today we're at Boulder House for our boulder session. This episode will just feature our morning session of bouldering at Boulder House. And this is going to be our last session at Boulder House for like a little while, because we're about to go take part in the Master of Fire competition in Brussels, and then immediately after that, we're going to fly to Canada for about a month, just so we can train for a bit on the North American time zone and get nice and prepared for Canadian Nationals. And yeah, so this will be our last, this will be like our send-off session bouldering at Boulder House for like a little bit, I think. And we got some new boulders to try for our last nice little session. And the first one we're starting with is this new pinchy one. And this one like looked super hard when I was scoping out the boulders, and I was excited to work it. And already I've got sort of like an interesting topic that I want to talk about, and that has to do with this boulder. And I really found myself thinking about it while I was trying this boulder. And that's just like the sort of thing that I've noticed myself doing in the past, you know, especially the past year, when I've had like a couple breaks from climbing, and I've had to sort of, I took 2 months off, 2.5 months off, like at the beginning of this year, which was like sort of unheard of for me. And when I was like getting back into climbing, I really noticed myself doing this, and that's sort of like romanticizing your former self's ability, and like sort of like idolizing your self, like your past self, and sort of like being insecure about how you're feeling in the present, and thinking that, you know, maybe have I like actually been making progress, or, you know, am I not as strong as I used to be? Like this sort of idea. I found myself really thinking about it on this boulder. And the reason for that is these pinches are like E-grips. It's like an American brand. I sort of grew up climbing on these pinches all the time when I was young. These are like a lot of gyms like near my home, and they've been around for years. And these are sort of the holds that I can track my pinching progress, my pinching strength over like years and years. And I have a really, like, I can know exactly how to grab these holds and exactly how they're supposed to feel in my hands. And so like I can think back to some times in my youth or like previous years, like when I was like feeling like really strong, and I could just squeeze the heck out of these pinches, and they would be like so good, and I could do some crazy hard moves on these pinches. And you know, today I was feeling okay. It was like pretty like bog standard average session, not feeling too great, not feeling bad, whatever. But I noticed like a bit of instability, and like a bit of like maybe I could be squeezing this pinch harder a bit at the start of this boulder, especially because it's like this first move is like super limit. Like this is such a hard move. The wall is like a lot steeper than it looks in this angle, and the left hand is super slopey. Like this first move is really hard. I wasn't able to stick it today. It's like a nice like little project for me. I'm psyched that they put up this sort of test piece. But yeah, like I was like not feeling like the strongest I've ever felt on this pinch. And you know, I started to get in my head a bit. I was like, wait, I'm supposed to be so at home on this pinch. I've like, you know, climbed on it for years and years, and I know how it's supposed to feel when I feel strong on like this line of pinches, and I feel like okay. But it's like it's always interesting when you find yourself really comparing your self in the present to your past self, and especially on like even when it gets like as super specific, like I was doing today on like this specific line of holds, not even just sort of generally. But I think, and this is also very relevant for me as well, because like I've mentioned, I've sort of like always been recording I have probably, you know, the past 4 or 5 years, a lot of my climbing just like recorded and saved on like my iCloud drive, just like videos and videos of myself climbing, just because I film myself a lot to sort of learn and watch myself climb, study my form, critique things that need to be critiqued, and it helps me like learn about how to climb better by just watching myself. And so I have like a lot of just like so much, like a massive surplus of videos of myself climbing. And every now and then, like if I'm just like having like a lazy night or something, I might just dip into the archives and start watching videos of myself, like old climbs, just to like, I don't know, reminisce and you know. And what I find myself doing sometimes is being like, whoa, look at this climb that I'm doing. Like I look super strong on this climb, or like, dang, I was like so strong back then, or look at this crazy thing I'm doing. And I'm like sort of, you know, like I said, romanticizing like my former self's abilities. And I'm like, whoa, am I actually like stronger than I was, or was I stronger back then than I am now? And I can go into like this, like sometimes when I have these evenings where I like go and I dip into my archives too much, and I'm like watching a bunch of old videos, and I'm like, holy cow, I I look so like strong, and like that's not necessarily how I was feeling today. Or like, let's say I go and I watch an old video of myself on these pinches, and I look like way stronger on this line of pinches than I felt today. And anyway, the moral of the story with this idea, and what I was like really have been remembering over the past like couple years, especially like when I go and I have these evenings where I like dip into my archive and I'm like thinking that I used to be stronger than I am now, is oftentimes with this sort of effect, we always remember things better than they were. Also, I'll pause this thought and mention that we're trying this boulder again today. I tried this a couple sessions ago. It's the setters were going for this move where you jump and you have to land like a mantle in this crazy position with the duel-tex holds like facing up. It's a very evil move. And on the first session, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try this move. Like, it's a good move to practice. Like, this is like a super trendy move that the setters love to set on the competitions these days, like making you jump into mantles and, putting duel-tex like face up, whatever. So I was trying to do what the obvious intended sequence was. But today I was thinking like, you know what, it's probably going to take me 100 more tries to stick that move, like to jump into the mantle. It's like so low percentage. You have to hit it perfectly. And I'm not willing to invest like 1,000 tries to stick this once and then probably get got by the finish, which is what happens when I eventually do get my foot up here in a couple tries. I actually fall in the finish move. But anyway, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to go and just try and send this boulder at no matter the cost today. Like, I'm not going to just try and do the mantle. And so I thought of this beta actually the couple of sessions ago when I was trying this boulder. But I didn't do it because I wanted to see if I could do the mantle. I'd seen like a video of a setter do it. I think the hold that they were jumping off was like a jug before, but I knew that the position still was able to be jumped into, so I was trying it. Anyway, like I said, I just wanted to try and send this boulder at no matter the cost today. So I found my pinch with this foot jib and the heel hook. I felt like really secure on the heel with my sort of nice open hip position that I've talked about. And then I decided to do something really stupid here and like try and step on this duel-tex. Yeah, I don't know what I got a nice juicy jug staring at me in the face. I should have just jumped for that, which is what I do in this try. But it's actually cool. Like this boulder, like even kind of like breaking it and going and pinching this foothold and then going into the mantle, you still have to use all the holds, and it's still actually like a really cool sequence, and it's still like a really natural sequence. And like this boulder is actually just really epic. I really like this boulder, and it was fun to work on. And this could totally just be like a World Cup boulder too, because like you got options, and that's what setters love to give you in competitions as well, is just options, and they'll milk tries out of you by just giving you too many things to choose from, and then you can't pick one. And so this would have been a great boulder to actually do in a mock comp. I wish that I didn't have to switch my sessions because of the trains getting delayed, and I could have actually done a mock comp here on this day, and I could have seen how I would have tried that boulder when I was trying to send it at all costs. I wonder if I would have come up with this beta and been able to do it. But anyway, that was a cool boulder to get a send of, and yeah, that even the beta break was actually really epic. And then I noticed that I actually missed a little slab around the corner here on our last session of bouldering when we were here, and so I've discovered it and I went and tried it. Actually, I saw Maddie's vlog. She did this boulder, and I was like, hey, where did that black tape come from? I didn't see that, so I got on it today. It was pretty fun. But yeah, this idea that so when it about like romanticizing yourself in the past, we always tend to remember like the things way better than they were, and like this is like, this can apply to any sort of aspect of life, like not just climbing, like personal stuff, like whatever. You tend to like always remember the good stuff, and you sort of don't remember the bad stuff. I sound like I'm like talking about like relationships or something right now, but it's the same happens with climbing, and it also, this sort of effect works the same with like watching other people, or like just watching social media, and you just see like the highlights. When I go back and I watch a video of myself climb, like let's take these E-grips pinches for example, because that's like sort of the example that I'm using. I can like watch an old video of myself like cruise through these pinches, look really strong. When I'm watching this video, I'm not remembering the sensations that I was feeling necessarily, or like the exact sensations. It's just the visual. Whereas the difference between me watching like this video of me doing this yellow pinchy boulder from today is like, I know exactly how I felt in that boulder. And so the disconnect between like remembering exactly how you felt in that given scenario in the past versus like remembering how you're feeling now, that's sort of an important disconnect that makes you remember things better than they were. Or it's like, I probably was feeling similar on those pinches today, but I'm just seeing what it looks like, and I look strong. Meanwhile, like, let's fast forward 2 years. If I went back to watch this boulder that I was trying today on these yellow pinches, I would probably think the same thing. Like, wow, I look really strong on these, but I wouldn't remember like how I was feeling on that day. Anyway, the thing I guess to take away from this is like, to not be like, if you find yourself in a similar scenario, or you're like thinking that you were looking stronger in previous years, like maybe it's just this sort of effect is like you're just forgetting the bad stuff. And so I find myself like sometimes every now and then I'm like, wait, have I been making progress over these years? Like I look super strong in the past. I don't know. I think sometimes you just romanticize yourself. You romanticize your former self, and sometimes it's just important to remember when you're doing that, so that you don't like, think that you're not making progress or something. It's just something I think about from time to time. I thought it was interesting, and I found myself sort of thinking about it again on those pinches, because I'm like, yeah, you know what? I felt strong on these pinches before, but yeah, I don't know. It was just interesting. So anyway, this boulder we're trying here, we tried this, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks ago at this point. I tried it for a little bit, probably tried it for like 15 minutes, but then I only showed one attempt of me trying this boulder on the episode that it was featured in, because that video was getting really long and all my attempts looked the same. I could never stand up on this right foot where my foot was on briefly, like this little foothold that's blocked, and it is super bad. And in that episode, I mentioned that I was wanting to see Maddie try this boulder because it's like super Maddie style. Like this boulder is like Maddie food. Like not I mean, she's really good at slab, but this slab in particular, I just could tell that it's like it really suited her. She's really good at trusting her feet on like these sort of footholds where it's like really, really bad. It's like it just feels like nothing, but you have to stand on it. You have to trust it. You have no choice. You just got to trust it, and that's what she's really good at. And so I wanted to see how she did on that, and she did well. She did the boulder obviously as I expected, and this will actually lead me into my tip of the day for this episode as well, and like sort of just like this theme of like trusting your feet. And it's not just as like sort of like my tip of the day isn't to trust your feet, not that general, but one thing I really found myself having to put into practice on this boulder in particular, on not only this right foot, but also this foot that I'm trying to step on with my left here as well. This actually ended up being like the sort of second crux, was placing your foot just well enough on this left foothold in order to like take your right foot off and actually be able to snake it over to the right. My tip of the day that I was having to use for this boulder was that I had to really adjust my foot and work it into a position where it was going to feel good when I stood up. So the mistake I was making for a long time, especially with this right foot, is I would try to adjust it so that it felt really solid and I trusted my foot a lot before I moved off of it and like would stand up. But what would happen is like the position and the slight like micro adjustments that I would have to make to this foothold, by the time I stood up, it wasn't actually optimal for standing above this hold. It was an optimal feeling for when I was down and to the left. That was actually how I was that's like the way I adjusted my foot. It felt really good in that position. But then I didn't invest in what it was gonna feel like for when I was standing on top of it. And so what I had to sort of realize is like, okay, and the way that I learned this as well is just like I would run up, or I would like climb up above the boulder and then stand on the foothold, and I would be like, hey, I'm standing on this foothold different right now. I'm standing in a different place than I was when I was trying to step on it from like climbing into the move. And it's just because I was like higher above it, obviously, higher above the foothold, obviously. And so what I realized is like, okay, well, obviously I got to try and just mimic this feeling from just the normal sequence. So what I started to do is I started to try and place my foot so that it would feel in that same position from as I would place it when I just climb up and then place my foot. So basically, I just have to try and place my foot in the position that I want it to be when I'm standing up on top of the foothold, rather than like in this position here. And I also had to do the same sort of thing with this second foothold. So basically, the tip of the day is like, don't necessarily try to make your foot feel super good for when you're like not actually in the end position that you want to be. So you want to try and make it feel good for when you're going to be standing on the move. And basically, it's kind of hard to do this as well if you're trying to like basically like onside a boulder, or you're only able to give ground tries, because it's hard to necessarily know what it's gonna how it's gonna feel really good. Also, I'll say like I finally am able to get the center of this boulder after like really working and trusting that left foothold, and I did like the tall man made it to match the finish like this. But then after the pressure of the send pressure was off, I said, okay, let's actually see if I can do the proper beta, and so I just climbed it again. But yeah, I like the moral of the story is like you really just want to place your foot invest in a better feeling position for when you're standing on top of a foot, or like you're in the position you want to be rather than beforehand. And maybe that's not going to feel good. Like when I had to put my foot like a bit more to the right, which is where it was feeling better when I was standing on top of it. It didn't feel good when I was like in that position before I moved off the hold. But then as soon as I started moving it and I got into the position where I was standing up, then it felt good. Whereas before it was the opposite. And so, yeah, like I said, it's sort of hard to find that position if you're trying to send it from the ground, because you wouldn't necessarily know what it felt like. But if you have the opportunity to project, obviously you can learn where the good position is going to be, and you can place your foot like that before. But yeah, like this is something that it's always hard to gauge, and you just have to try your best. Like when you're trying to like onside a boulder or send it from the ground, and let's say you didn't have the opportunity to sort of climb into it, you just have to sort of guess sometimes. And like this doesn't apply to every single foothold all the time. Like it was pretty specific to this boulder, but when it helps, it helps. And so yeah, I was really having to use that technique not only on that right foothold, but also on the left foothold. I had to place it in a way where it actually felt worse initially, but then when I stood up on the foothold, it felt better. So yeah, that's today's tip of the day. This boulder was like my max limit slab. I actually like, it was so hard feeling for me that I didn't think I was going to do it. And so I actually ended up just like I stopped caring about whether or not I was going to do this slab. I actually found myself in a weird mood. I was like, you know what? This slab is so hard. This foothold is just so garbage. I don't even care. I'm like done with this boulder. And I stopped caring so much to the point where it took all the pressure off, and I was able to climb like super loosely and calmly. And it actually helped get the sound of this boulder. Like even when I made it through that crux, I was like, you know what? I'm going to fall here probably. I'm probably going to fall, and I'm going to get so triggered that I'm just over it already. And then I was like so not caring that I actually was able to send the boulder because of that, which is kind of funny. So yeah, that wrapped up our last day of training, probably for a little while at Boulder House. Like man, there have been so many good sets here recently. Like good job to the setters. They've been really putting up some quality boulders. Like we've been getting some really good sessions and some good training in here at Boulder House recently. But yeah, that concludes today. Tomorrow I'm gonna do our first slab session, so that's gonna be fun. Our first slab dedicated session of this program. And I think we'll do that at Studio Block. And then, then it's a rest day. And then we'll have our fun video that I mentioned that I planned, our session at COMPCLIMB, the new gym that's opening in Heidelberg. And we're going to go test out the opening set with some of the setters. So that'll be a lot of fun. Tune in for that. Insert catchy video outro here.